Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel. We're happy to have you here with us.
We've been talking a lot lately about the types of videos that we want to make, the content that we want to put out there into YouTube world, and things that we think you might find interesting. If you go to look at our channel, you'll see we've already posted a few videos just about fun things that we've done. We went up to Cincinnati once to get some Wagyu steak because Jerica wanted some fancy steak for dinner one night, and birthday celebrations, and we totally plan on using the channel for more of that kind of videos, but we also want to dedicate a portion of them to just maybe getting a little bit more personal and talking about our family and some of the things that we've learned. Janelle and I have been married now for a year and a half. Our second anniversary will be on May 25th next year. And we've got 4 kids. They're not all
Biologically
Tyson. They're not all biologically mine. Trying to think of how to say that. So we have a stepfamily, which, as it turns out, isn't super uncommon in today's world. If we look at a couple of numbers, we both love numbers, so we'll probably share a lot of numbers in our videos. 40% of married households in America today have stepchildren present. So that already sounds like a big number, but once we look at what that really means, it means 10.5 million children in America today have a stepparent. So if you're one of those 10.5 million, just know you're not alone, and there are a lot of other kids in the country just like you. And presumably throughout the world, this number obviously gets a lot larger. And today, 1 in 3 weddings create a stepfamily. So those are pretty big numbers, really something to keep in mind and think about. And we'll talk a little bit more about our experience and things that we've learned, that I've learned, and things that you can expect when becoming a step-parent.
Alright, babe. Got some questions for you.
Okay.
Okay.
Question and answer format.
What kind of relationship can you expect to have with stepkids?
Okay, so building a relationship with your stepkids, I think, has a lot of similarities to just building a relationship with your biological kids. But the difference is you weren't there when they were born. They didn't get to know you as like their primary caregiver or parent. But just like with biological kids, I think it requires probably the same amount of effort. I guess the difference is stepkids may not feel obligated to love you like your biological kids might. That sounds like a terrible word, because I know there's a lot of situations where, kids may not feel like they love their biological parents sometimes. But there is something that's just a little bit different. But I think you can still forge a good relationship with your stepkids if you put in the time and effort, and I think it all really builds around trust. Like, if they can learn to trust you, and that you're a safe person for them, then I think you can have just as good a relationship. So I think about like me and the girls, and I mean, it was the thing that made it easy is it was just a really natural relationship. Like, when I met the girls, they were already very open and accepting and willing to share things about themselves and ask me questions and let me tell them who I was and get to know. So that made it pretty easy. That may not be the case in every scenario, but I think you can expect to have a really strong relationship with stepkids, just like you would with your biological kids.
It's true. Okay, I think a big one, probably for a lot of families, is how do you discipline? Where do you feel like you fall in line?
That's another good question. So, yeah, McKenna, Haley, and Jerica are all teenage or preteen age, which means they get into mischief and they have drama and they like to talk back and make themselves heard. So there's opportunities for discipline. And this is probably one that I'm still figuring out. But I think there's probably a couple things that will make you more successful at discipline. And obviously, as a parental figure, that's part of your job. and your responsibilities. I don't want to call it a job, but something that you'd be expected to do is just make sure that you're raising the kids properly and, you know, helping them become good adults. So I think the first important thing is that you and your spouse have similar discipline styles. And the best way to come about that probably isn't luck or chance. It's going to come from communication. So I think to a degree, Janelle and I do have similar discipline styles, and, you know, at least recognizing when, you know, one of the girls has done something that is worthy of discipline. But it has taken a pretty healthy degree of communication between us, both to come to an agreement, but also to understand what is and isn't acceptable. So one of the things in our house that, like, we probably wouldn't turn to as a first resort for disciplining the girls is, like, to take their phones away. But that's something that we've talked about and have come to an agreement that, all right, well, if we're going to discipline the girls because they've done something bad, this isn't something we're going to do. I think luckily, though, we don't really have to discipline them very often. With them, they're really...
It's not so more anything usually towards us. It's more them with each other.
Yeah.
That you kind of have to get after them about.
So it's really more of just an opportunity to point out behavior that isn't appropriate. I don't think... In fact, now that I think about it, I've never really even had a situation where I've had to, like, tell them they're grounded or anything, because typically just having a discussion with them is good enough, and they get it.
Yeah, they're old enough now. You can usually just sit down and ration with them why you feel the way you feel.
But, you know, if you've got younger kids and you're going to have younger stepkids, I think one of the important takeaways from this thought would be make sure to be on a good level of communication with your spouse about what is appropriate in discipline and what isn't. One of the things, I guess, as I'll add on just like a final thought, is one of the things that I probably struggle with, and a lot of people probably struggle with, is maybe not feeling like an authority figure or, you know, a proper disciplinarian. And the kids may not respond to your discipline the way they would to one of their, you know, biological parents. You're not an authority figure, but go back to what I talked about first. You know, that level of trust. At least they can trust that you're right, hopefully right, in pointing out that the behavior was inappropriate.
Well, just like Tyson said, just that him and I, you know, communicate, and just that the girls know where him and I stand on our relationship with each other. Like, if they were to backtalk him, or, you know, they know they're gonna hear it from me, you know, and vice versa. Like, they'll probably get more of the wrath from me. But they've backtalked, and he has let them know, you don't talk to your mom that way, you know. So it just depends, and every family situation is very different. I've heard ours is a little different. I brought kids into our marriage. Tyson didn't have any before.
Just cats.
Just cats, and booted them. We did. But a lot of families that bring both sides have kids. I've heard that they just, whoever's kids they are, that's who disciplines them. Like, they're on the same page, and they communicate that the kids know they're not going to get away with something because their mom or their dad, whoever's going to talk to the other parent, and they're going to be disciplined either way. But they've kind of just, well, I'll let you take care of that one, you know. I don't know, every family's different. You got to figure it out. So
I think we just got kind of lucky that the girls that are old enough to just talk to, and we really don't have to ground them. But if any of them were to do anything serious, I think we've communicated enough and we understand what the plan of action would be.
Yep, it's true. All right. Let's see. I think this one is probably a big one for you. Like, when the girls will sit around and talk about, hey, do you remember when we did this and this? And, you know, obviously Tyson wasn't there for that.
Yeah. So I think one of the big things to expect when becoming a step-parent too is just to understand that you weren't around for a lot of their formative memories. And things that are important to them, or things that scare them, or things that are important to them are going to come out when they tell stories about their memories. So you may not be able to necessarily participate in a lot of those conversations, and it may even make you feel like a little bit of an outsider. especially when the rest of the family is talking about, well, hey, that time that mom took us to the pumpkin patch or whatever, you weren't there for it. And so you can't really contribute anything to the conversation, but it is a good opportunity to sit back and learn about the things that are important, or what did the kids enjoy about that experience, or what about this memory was maybe negative, or it's a good learning opportunity. So don't treat yourself like you're an outsider. I mean, that's part of their life growing up, but take those types of opportunities to just listen. And the thing is they're also one of those opportunities where you can just let them talk, and you play the sounding board, right? Like, they will just talk to you, and they'll appreciate that you're listening, and that honestly goes a long ways.
I feel like it's a good way for you to get to know who they are. Side note, I feel like probably on both sides, even as adults, you'll feel this way going into the new marriage with in-laws too. Like, you'll get around talking, and they'll talk about stuff you were not there for.
Totally.
This and this, and so it's just kind of things to kind of prepare. It's hard to prepare yourself until you're in that situation, but we're just giving you a heads up. It's just kind of things that you have to grow to accept. You weren't there for it. You get to know your spouse or your kids, your stepkids, by listening to memories. Think a really hard one. When they talk about the other biological parent.
So, I think we're good now with this one. Yeah, the kids are going to talk about their other parent. There's probably very few step-parent, stepchild scenarios where the children will not talk about the other parent. And this is an interesting one, and I don't think it's one you can really prepare yourself for. But there's probably a couple things to remember and to take away, and things that I've learned is, when all is said and done, you're never going to replace their biological parent as a step parent. You'll play a lot of roles. You'll play the father or the mother figure in a ton of scenarios. You'll play provider, you'll play chef, you'll play taskmaster, whatever. You're going to play all those different roles that their biological parent would play, but you're never going to replace the biological parent. Even if the biological parent is non-existent, absent, neglectful, or they're a wonderful parent, and for whatever reason their kid's parents separated and went their different ways, it doesn't really matter. There's probably a few scenarios where the kids don't have a very strong sense of, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, to some degree or another, they're going to love their biological parent for the fact that they're their biological parent, right? And in your new family relationship, they are the other parent, but they're still the kid's biological parent. So, remembering that you'll never replace the other parent, and then also encouraging...
I think the big thing, don't try to.
Yeah.
Like, don't try, because I think you're setting up expectations that may not be reached, and then I feel like that would just hurt, because the kids, like Tyson said, probably most of the time they love both their parents, so.
And there's never any room to encourage the kids to have negative feelings towards the other parent. Whether or not they're a bad guy or not is not your place as the step parent to put those thoughts in the kids' heads. If the other parent wants to be a bad parent and wants to be neglectful, whatever, let their actions show that to the kid over time. But it won't do any good to plant those thoughts or ideas there, or even build on things that have happened or that you may know as the adult. There's just a lot of things kids don't need to know. And it's okay as a step parent to just listen when the kids want to talk. they've obviously got a lot of thoughts and feelings about the situation that they're in, because it's probably not something that they planned on ever being in themselves. So it doesn't hurt to just let them talk and listen, know that you are going to play a lot of the parental roles, but at the end of the day, you're never going to, and you shouldn't replace their biological parent.
All right. Like us, we had a baby together. So what were your worries or fears about us having a child together?
Yeah. So I only had one real worry, and obviously we'd been dating for about a year before, and then married for 4 or 5 months before we got pregnant with Aria. But I think I had already established a really good relationship with the 3 older girls, and obviously I loved them a lot and really thought of them as my own kids. But then you told me you were pregnant with Aria, and I started to worry, like, well, what happens if I love her more than the other 3? Or what happens if I have a tendency to, like, treat her differently? And I remember being in the hospital, and I that's probably one of the last things that I thought about, actually, before they took her out, was, what am I gonna feel? And obviously, yeah, you become a parent, like, your kid's born, and there's all the feelings that go along with that, and you just love them instantly, unconditionally. But one of the things that I also kind of felt was probably relief, that immediately I knew she didn't replace anyone or take up any place in my heart for the other girls. Like, they still have their own spot. There just happens to be another one now. And I think it's been that way ever since she was born.
I'll say and it's so funny because I don't think we really communicated that to each other till I was, like, pretty far along, because I think we were both worried, like, what's the other one gonna think if I say, what if you love this one
really
over the, till right at the end, because that was my fear too, was, like, what if, he ends up loving her more than the girls, which ends up, she gets treated differently than the girls. I was like, how's that gonna affect our family dynamic? And the girls having a relationship with their baby sister, as they get older. So it was also a fear of mine, along with his. But honestly, it went as smooth as it could go.
Mm-hmm.
I think, like, nothing different. The girls love their baby sister, as if she was 100% biologically theirs, which they don't even think that.
I don't think they understand.
They just, that's their sister, like, and they love her all the same.
Yeah.
Let's see. So have the girls brought up your past?
Yes. But they didn't just ask me about it, they Googled me. So I think that's one thing you can expect, especially with older kids, soon-to-be stepkids, is they're at some point going to be interested in who you were before you married their parent. So, yeah, be prepared for that.
Yeah, I think the biggest part was my girls were protective of me, and they didn't want to see me get hurt again. So they wanted to make sure he checked out.
They did a background check, very thorough. And they learned some things that we hadn't told them, but nothing was negative, obviously. But just be prepared. Whatever you put on the internet,
they will find it.
They'll find it. They will find
Kids
it.
Kids are so savvy, especially when it comes to tech stuff. All right. Let's talk about the transition for you. Going from, this guy came from no kids to 3 to 4, like, real fast.
Yeah, it's a big transition. If you're like me and you go into a situation where, you went from no kids to more than the national average for kids, with one I do, be prepared. It is a very big transition, both in, like, terms of responsibilities and time commitments and learning dietary needs and things they like to do, where they want to go, what they want to be when they're, it's a huge transition. All of a sudden you have, like, all these people you have to, like, know everything about. So it does take an investment, and the biggest one is going to come, against your time. So I don't think I would say that you have to like give up any of your hobbies or interests or things that you're totally into, unless they're super not kid friendly, but you should probably be rethinking those anyway. But there is going to be a significant, increase in the time you spend doing things other than what you normally would have done. So for me, I used to go fishing a lot and hiking and camping and out in the desert, and not that we can't still do those things, but they're not the number one priority anymore. Obviously taking care of the kids and making sure that they're fed and clothed and bathed and ready for school tomorrow and homework is done is the number one priority. So yeah, it's a big transition, but I don't think it's one that is impossible or that should even really be like, if you're getting into a situation and you're making a pros and cons list, it's not one that I would put on the cons list.
Okay. Do you, at what point or if did you feel that they weren't stepkids anymore, that it just was more natural and felt like?
I think, yeah, that's a good one. Because for a while after we got married, if we were out in public or someone asked a question or something, I would, yeah, these are my stepkids. And then one day I just said, yeah, these are my kids, or these are my daughters, and I didn't even think about it. It just happened. But it was like as natural as anything. So I think one of the things you can expect is that at some point you're going to forget that they're your stepkids. They're around you all the time, or a significant amount of time, and you treat them as you would your own kids. So naturally, at some point, you'll probably forget they're your stepkids.
Okay. Do you think it bugs the girls when you hug and kiss me?
Yes. Yes. I think it is always going to be strange to kids to see, well, their mother in this scenario, kiss and hug somebody who's not their parent, right?
Biological.
I mean, kids don't really like to see their parents hug and kiss anyway, but I think there's an extra element of
ew.
Not even that, just awkward, because they're just they grew up seeing something else, right? So it bugs them, and I don't think that they ever really get over it. It does probably become more normal and feels more natural, but yeah.
I think it's not as bad.
No, not anymore, unless we get really bad.
Oh gosh, okay. All right. Oh, this one's funny. If they say something bad about their biological parent in public.
Oh gosh. Okay, yeah. So this isn't something that you can necessarily expect in all scenarios, but I got a good laugh anyway. I was walking in Home Depot with the girls looking for something or another. They were walking right in front of me, and I was just right behind them. And I don't remember which of the girls it was, or I don't even know the story. I don't know what happened. I don't know any of the details. But one of the girls real loud said something like, "Dad's such a freaking liar. He doesn't even care about us," or something. And a lady that was nearby heard, because they said it really loud, and just gave me the nastiest glare.
Because naturally they think
I'm dad.
Dad.
And wow, what kids are talking about? What a terrible dad I am right in front of me.
Call CPS.
No kidding. But I mean, if it really bugged me what other people thought, then maybe I'd say, "Oh, these are my stepkids." But at this point, I just laugh about it. It was just funny. But yeah, just in public, you never know what kids are gonna say anyway.
Kids naturally just do not have a filter.
Not even a little
They just don't pick up on their surroundings, so.
No.
You just gotta kind of
Such
go
a
with
freaking liar.
Oh man.
It was not said in a joking tone either.
I'm sure that lady went home and was like, "Let me tell you." All right. Do you feel like it's been rewarding?
Yeah. I think it's honestly right up there with having your own kids, right? It's rewarding. It's one of those things it's a lot of work, it's a lot of transition, there's a lot to deal with, and I mean, you might have some extra struggles that maybe you wouldn't have with your own biological kids. Maybe not. I don't know. Aria's not old enough for me to really know what kind of curveball she's gonna throw at us, but it does. Like the first time they tell you they love you when you leave for work in the morning, or when you drop them off at school, or when they give you a hug at night, and it's just another one of those scenarios where you kind of forget, like, and these aren't my biological kids, and it just feels 100% natural, and it's rewarding to watch them grow up. And I think even as a step parent, you can be just as proud of the good decisions and accomplishments that they make as your own biological kid. So yeah, absolutely, it's rewarding, 100%.
Alright. I think that's all I've got.
Prepared questions. So let us know. I mean, if you have any other questions, maybe you're a total stranger. We don't know who you are, but you stumbled on our video, and maybe in a scenario where you might be one of those 1 in 3 couples that have stepkids in the house, or the 40% of households in America with stepkids. That math doesn't seem to add up, but that's what I got off the internet anyway.
The internet's always right, baby.
100%. I got off TikTok, right? Leave questions in the comments. We'll respond. We're not, the world's foremost experts on step couple relationships, but
we do live in it. So
every day.
We have an idea.
Well, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.